Hello and welcome to the premiere episode of Detroit Drives. This is the very first in a series dedicated to cars. We will look at their history, their present, and their future, and everything to do with cars and the people who love them. In short, we look at what drives Detroit. In today's show, we will go behind the scenes at OnStar and get a first-hand look at how General Motors makes it work. In our Car of the Week segment, Bob Casey shows us the presidential limousine President Kennedy was riding in when he was assassinated. We will go back to the future as seen through the eyes of one of GM's legendary designers, Harley Earl, who in 1956 designed his car of the future. We'll see what he predicted and what came true. Also, we'll look to the near future as we examine the trend of installing roundabouts instead of traditional intersections throughout Oakland County and the rest of the country. Sandra Maurer takes a close look at tires in our Car Tips segment. Attorney Mitch Foster explains what to do and say if you are pulled over during a routine traffic stop in our Rules of the Road segment. All this and more coming up right now on Detroit Drives.
Now, here's your host to Detroit Drives, Clifford Marko.
General Motors is currently installing its OnStar system in its cars and trucks. With a push of a button, you can talk to one of their call centers. If your airbag deploys, they will know about it and can call for help. They can unlock your doors if you lock your keys in the car. They can track your car, give you directions, even order lunch for you. OnStar gets about 80,000 calls a day. How do they do it? We take a behind-the-scenes tour at the OnStar Command Center in Part 1 of Inside OnStar. Hi, Jim. How are you?
Cliff, good morning and welcome to OnStar.
Hey, thank you for having us. So tell me, where are we?
We're actually located in Detroit, Michigan at the home of General Motors and OnStar's global headquarters. The floor we're on in particular houses OnStar's Central Command Center.
So this is where it all happens.
This is our central nerve center. We monitor our key IT and telecommunications infrastructure, along with call monitoring and the call flows of all our interactions with our subscribers.
Outstanding. So where does it all happen?
Well, we're on this floor. We'll take a minute. We'll walk around the corner, and I'll give you a quick tour.
Very cool. Let's go.
Let's go.
Jim, this is incredible.
Yes, Cliff, welcome. This is inside OnStar's Central Command Center operations.
So what are we looking at here?
This is where it all happens. We monitor interactions with our 5 million subscriber base minute to minute to make sure that our service levels are at optimum or at peak performance at all times. As you see behind us, we also keep an eye on news and weather information in an effort to keep our subscribers out of harm's way while they're on the road.
So what is all this telling us?
Well, we've got a satellite weather feed. We have current warnings, weather warnings issued around the country. It gives us interaction information on how we are monitoring service levels day in and day out. And again, trying to provide the best possible service to over 5 million subscribers on the road today.
Now, this is not a call center.
No, these people do not take calls. They manage our call center business, along with the key IT and telecommunications infrastructure. It's a very complicated business.
So they actually control the call centers?
Yes, they control the call flows and the service levels at our 3 different call centers here in North America.
And they are monitoring all of that?
Yes. On average, every day of the week, we could interact with upwards of 50,000 to 80,000 subscribers every day of the week.
That's an incredible number.
Incredible number. Something like airbag deployments. We respond to almost 1,200 airbag deployments on average every month. And emergency button presses. We are now reaching 12,000 responses to emergency button presses every month of every year. And something odd like remote door unlocks. We respond to over 50,000 remote door unlock requests every month also. Very odd category, but life happens in your vehicle, and you know what? All kinds of situations occur.
So what kinds of situations occur?
Oh, gosh, we've been involved with everything from delivering babies, assisting in delivering babies, because we're not actually in the vehicle, but responding to door unlocks because somebody's pet monkey actually locked them out of their vehicle. Go figure, right.
You got to be careful with those pet monkeys.
It's a dynamic business, and we all spend a lot of time in our vehicles these days, and life occurs on the road, all kinds of strange situations.
That's excellent. So what else are they doing here? They're controlling the call centers?
Yep.
And do they control the calls that go into each center?
Yes, they monitor service levels by service line. So if somebody's, if we're getting an enormous amount of emergency button presses and a certain center is challenged in responding to them, they reroute those calls to the next center better able to respond. So with respect to emergencies, that's our number one priority to respond to. And on average, we respond within 1 second of receiving an emergency button press.
How long will it take from the time that somebody calls you that you can unlock a door?
It'll depend where the vehicle is, and we go through some security information to make sure that the person calling us is actually the owner of the vehicle. So we go through a PIN number and some security information verification. And then, yes, it's a matter of sending a signal into the vehicle. And sometimes it's just in a matter of minutes. And lo and behold, your door unlocks for you.
So what other services does OnStar provide?
Everything from routing requests. We average sometimes 400,000 requests for routing. It may be somebody on the road today and say they button press in on our blue button and say, help me find the nearest Catholic church. Or maybe it's help me find the nearest Walmart. Or maybe it's help me find the nearest hospital because I have a child with an allergic reaction in the car. Those kind of, wide variation of requests for services.
How many subscribers are there?
You know what? Today we service nearly 5 million subscribers on the road. And as a result of General Motors' decision 2 years ago, OnStar will become standard equipment on every vehicle GM builds in North America. So our volume will have inherent growth going from 5 million to almost 8 or 10 million in a matter of 2 years' time.
Do you know how many employees work at OnStar?
Yeah, we've got nearly 1,000 employees, actual employees that work in the OnStar central operations, 500 or so OnStar GM employees, and another 500 contract people, that supply very critical, links in engineering and IT. And so, yeah, the organization has grown dramatically, and, we're proud of what we do, and we're in the business to help people every day of the week.
Jim Kobus, thank you very much. This is fascinating stuff.
Cliff, thanks for allowing us to share our information with your viewers.
Great. You're driving down the road. Suddenly, in your rearview mirror, police lights are flashing. The officer signals for you to pull over. Ever happened to you? What should you tell the officer? What should you not tell the officer? If the officer asks to search your car, what should you say? What should you do? We asked attorney Mitch Foster for some suggestions.
You've just been pulled over by the police. What do you do? Well, there's one thing that you have to do. You have to give the police your identification, driver's license, proof of registration, and proof of insurance. The police may ask you questions. You don't have to answer the police's questions other than to identify yourself. You don't have to say where you've been going, what you've been doing, or things along those lines. You also do not have to allow the police to search your car or your person. It's very important to never give permission to the police to allow them to search. You're just asking for trouble. Now the police they're allowed to try to trick you or to lie to you or to even threaten you. Some police can do these type of things, and it's important to not give in and be tricked and let yourself be threatened or tricked or intimidated, and stand firm and say, no, you may not search my vehicle. Talk to my lawyer. So the advice I give to people is to be polite, identify yourself, don't answer questions, and don't give permission to search. And always speak with a lawyer first.
One of the regular features on Detroit Drives is our Car of the Week. This week, Bob Casey, curator of transportation at the Henry Ford Museum, takes us on a tour of the most famous car in their entire collection, the presidential limousine President Kennedy was riding in when he was assassinated. Bob?
Thank you, Cliff. Our Car of the Week this week is perhaps the most famous car in the Henry Ford's collection. It's the 1961 Lincoln Continental that people properly call the Kennedy car. It is, in fact, the vehicle that John Kennedy was riding in when he was assassinated in 1963. Some people, when they come here to the museum, are confused by this car because it doesn't look like the one they've seen in all the pictures. The car that Kennedy was riding in was an open car, had no roof on it, and was painted a wonderful midnight blue. And the car behind me is, of course, black and has a full roof. And that all speaks to the changes that were made after the assassination. This car was brand new when it was built for President Kennedy as a new presidential limousine. It was open. It actually had a whole series of portable tops that you could put on it. But Kennedy is a politician. He wants to be seen by the people, and he preferred to have the car open as long as the weather cooperated. After the assassination, the Secret Service said, no more open cars for presidents, please. And you might think that this car would not have been used anymore because, after all, a president was killed in it. But the Secret Service was in a hurry to get an armored limousine. And they determined that the quickest way to get one wasn't to build a new one, but was to take the existing car and modify it. And so that's what they did. After it was released by the Warren Commission, it went back to Hess and Eisenhart, which was the company that had customized it, company in Cincinnati. They took the car all apart. They put armor plate all over it because there was no armor plate on the car originally. They armor plated the car. They welded on a permanent roof. They put big, thick, bulletproof glass in, repainted it that wonderful midnight blue, and sent it back to the White House. And Lyndon Johnson, who was now the president, wouldn't use it because that wonderful midnight blue was so associated with John Kennedy that Lyndon Johnson said, paint it black. So they did. And then Lyndon Johnson used it, and Richard Nixon used it, and it remained in service actually through the Nixon administration. Many people are surprised. They think the car would not have been used before. And I'm not even sure, say, that President Nixon really knew that this was the car that Kennedy had been shot in. But the car remained in service and became one of those symbolic vehicles that symbolized the American presidency. One of the questions we're sometimes asked about this car is why we have it at all. Why is this car at the Henry Ford and not at the Smithsonian? And the answer is that the federal government never owned this car. Ford Motor Company always owned it. They leased it to the federal government for a very small amount of money, but when the Secret Service decided it was time for a replacement car, this one reverted back to Ford Motor Company, and Ford Motor Company gave it to us. And I'm sure the Smithsonian would like it, but they're not going to get it. Back to you, Cliff.
How can you tell when your tires are worn out? Sandra Maurer learns about tires in our Car Tips feature.
So Todd, tell me when I need to look for when I need new tires.
Well, Sandra, you may need new tires when you start to feel your car getting a little sloppier than it used to be, or it's got a little bit less traction than it used to be. When you go to get your oil changed in your vehicle, A good shop is going to do a full service oil change, which is going to include checking the air pressure in your tires and also taking a look at those tires. They should alert you to any problems that you have with your tires. The main thing that you're looking for is you're looking for tread depth. You want to make sure that the tires that you have enough depth in the tread that they will actually grip the road through rain, snow, and even in dry pavement. I've got a couple of examples of some tires here.
Great.
This is a tire that has almost no tread depth whatsoever. You have what's called a wear indicator or a tread bar that will tell you when your tire's tread is completely gone and considered an unsafe tire. You can see this tire is actually worn down right down to that tread bar. Tread bar is a little higher surface than the base of the tread on the tire. Again, it's the gauge that you use to determine the tread depth of your tire. I have a tread depth gauge here. If I actually put that on the tread bar, it reads 0 30/2 of an inch, which tells me this tire, aside from the fact that it looks like it has no tread, it has no tread. This is an example of a tire that's worn beyond the tread bar. I will actually show you here. You can actually see the steel belts coming through this tire. This tire is actually beyond unsafe. It's actually also got some wear on the sides here. You've got some what is called cupping in the tread, some uneven tread as a result of this tire bouncing on the road as it's lost its structural integrity as it's gotten older. If we measure the tread depth of this tire, we've actually got about 10/32 of an inch. That's a good, healthy tire. But again, that's something that can simply be checked when you get your oil changes done, wherever it is that you get your oil change done. With a good full service oil change, they should be looking at that for you.
So it's more than just sight, though.
Yes, it is. You have a tool that you can measure that with. But even as a consumer, you can look at your tire. Obviously, if you see steel belts coming through, that's a problem. If you see your tires down almost to the tread bar, that's time. That is definitely time to change those tires out.
Okay.
Oakland County is beginning construction on a series of roundabouts. These roundabouts are going to replace traditional intersections throughout the county where there is heavy traffic. Roundabouts are going to be the wave of the future, not only for Oakland County, but for the whole country, as we learned when we talked with Craig Bryson of the Oakland County Road Commission. Maple and Drake Road, talking with Craig Bryson from the Oakland County Road Commission. Welcome, Craig.
Thank you.
What's going on here at this corner? What will be going on here at this corner?
Well, we're going to build a roundabout that'll help improve the flow of traffic and improve the safety of this intersection, part of a much larger project to move traffic through this area much more efficiently.
What's wrong with this corner?
It's heavily congested right now, as is the whole traffic pattern around here. If you're here at rush hour, it's very much stop and go, and it's only going to get worse as development continues to the west and the north.
So why did you decide to put in a roundabout here?
Well, we looked at the entire traffic pattern of the area from where Northwestern Highway dead ends at Orchard Lake Road over to M5 and how to move traffic from one end to the other. And we found that the most efficient way to do that was to improve the flow of traffic through the intersections. The intersections with traffic signals stop traffic. That's where we have the backups. If we can improve the flow of traffic through the intersection, we can improve the entire traffic system in the area. And roundabouts we found is the most efficient way to do that.
Is this going to be the future? Is there going to be more and more roundabouts throughout Oakland County?
Absolutely. We're building 2, possibly 3 this year. 4 this year. We've got 3 or 4 more coming next year. We're looking at them now. Every time we do an intersection project, we are now considering whether a roundabout makes sense at an intersection. They're much safer than a signalized intersection, and they're much more efficient as far as moving traffic in many instances. Not all cases, but in many instances.
Craig, what's the difference between a roundabout and a traffic circle?
Good question. A traffic circle is the old-fashioned design you'll see a lot out in Massachusetts and on the East Coast. They were much larger, for one thing, which allowed traffic to go much faster inside the circle, which made them much more dangerous. Secondly, the way cars entered the circle is different. In a traffic circle, often the cars would come to a stop and make a complete 90-degree turn to go into the circle. With a roundabout, it's a gradual merge, sort of like a freeway on-ramp where the car comes up and yields and then merges into the circle. It's designed to slow the car down as the car comes in. A lot of engineering design and thought goes into these. The small circle forces cars to go about 15 to 25 miles per hour in the circle. Much less dangerous and more effective than the old-fashioned traffic circles.
And that's the future of Oakland County.
future of much of the world. These things are being built en masse in Europe, throughout the United States, Colorado, East Coast, West Coast, you name it. Engineers in general around the world have come to the realization that statistically they're far safer and more efficient. You can move considerably more traffic, 30 to 40% more traffic through the same intersection without the traditional traffic signals and with a roundabout. And you can see a 90% reduction in fatal accidents. To us, that's a critical factor.
So how much does a roundabout cost?
Well, this one at this intersection is going to be around $2 million. It depends a lot on the geometrics of the intersection, how we design it. Whether or not we need to buy land around it is a big factor. In Oakland County, land is very expensive. If we have to buy a lot of roundabout, it's expensive. But if we come in and reconstruct an intersection, put in additional lanes, which is what we generally do when we're looking at a roundabout as an option, it can be equally expensive. So in some cases, it's actually less expensive.
And where is the money coming from?
Well, just like every other project, depends on the project, depends on the sources. We use federal funds primarily for major road construction projects in general. This is just another design of construction projects. The funding is based on whether a project is going to improve congestion and whether it's going to improve safety. Roundabout can help us get funding that we might not otherwise get because they can do more to improve safety and reduce congestion.
When will this project be complete?
This one should be done in late July or early August.
And then there's going to be more later?
That'll be the first one. The next one will be down the road here at the intersection of Farmington and Maple. That one will also be built this year, starting as soon as this one is finished. After that, we'll go to Farmington and 14 Mile Road. That one will maybe start this year, maybe next year. Following that, we will build 2 roundabouts at the intersections of 14 Mile and Orchard Lake and Maple and Orchard Lake, as well as widen Orchard Lake Road between 14 Mile and Maple. Finally, we'll build 2 roundabouts at Haggerty and Maple and Haggerty and 14 Mile.
Craig Bryson is our roundabout sort of guy.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Way back in 1956, Harley Earl was one of General Motors' top designers. In that year, Earl designed and built a one-of-a-kind show car to demonstrate his vision of the car of the future. Detroit Drives takes a look at what the future looked like to Harley Earl in 1956. We're talking with Kim Martin about the car of the future as seen from 1956. Kim, tell me about this car.
Well, this is, like I said, like 1956 Buick Centurion. It's a Harley Earl design. Some of the features on it back in 1956, which would relate to some of the features they got on the cars nowadays. Like, for instance, this has a TV on it where you can see people in back of you.
Okay, a backup television monitor.
Television monitor. Everything on here is just like it came when it was built in 1956. It has not been touched at all.
How many of these cars were built?
One.
This is a one and only.
One and only concept car. It's just for show only. Everything in this interior is all, back in 1956, everything on here was all experimental. It's all the future stuff you see today. Like, for instance, here's the gear shift I was telling you about for park, reverse, things like that. The radio is right here. Here's your switch right here to turn the radio on and off. You dial right up here. This right here is just a centerpiece for decoration. The TV monitor for the rear is to see who's coming in back of you.
And for backing up.
Backing up. There's the switches right here for that. The speedometer is right here.
And the whole wheel turns.
Oh yeah, the whole wheel turns. I can't turn it because it's
right.
But all the controls for the heating, the air conditioning, everything are right in here, right down here. The power for the headrests, the seat release, everything right here. It's like I said, it's a Harley Earl design, and Harley Earl like chrome plate. Everything on here is chrome.
Very good.
And this car, again, this car has not been touched since 1956.
Including the digital clock right here.
Probably. And back at this is what again, like the future is supposed to look like today. A lot of the cars they have today have some of this stuff on here, but it's up to date with all the different electronics.
Sure.
But this is all wires and tubes.
Wires and tubes.
And instead of chips, computer chips.
And what a view you have.
Oh yeah. I kind of in the summertime I kind of hate to be riding this thing because I imagine it gets pretty hot.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a very unique car. Yeah, and there's only one in the world ever made. It's got a price tag on it. I'm going to guess on this. If it ever is sold at any auction or whatever, I'm going to take a stab between $3-4 million.
$3-4 million. I wonder if they take one of my checks.
I offer my check every time.
Really?
So far.
Really?
But other than that...
Is it an automatic?
Yes, it's an automatic.
Very good.
It's an automatic. These little buttons right here are your blinker indicators. For left and right, turn signals. Horn right here. Other than that, it's just about the same as you drive a regular car today. I mean, everything's right here in front of you, but it's just, to me, I think it's awesome on the stuff they had back 50 years ago, what they got today.
Electric windows.
Everything, yep.
This is Harley Earl's design of his vision for the future.
Right.
This was built as a concept car for an auto show.
Right. And it's strictly a show car. That was it. Strictly a show car.
Right. Fabulous. Have you driven it?
No. Okay. Right now, this does not have any kind of a drivetrain in it. Never did.
Oh. Okay.
It was just strictly show.
I see.
They put the motor runs. Everything on here works, all except you can't drive it.
Thanks for watching the first episode of Detroit Drives. We hope it was entertaining and informative. We intend to bring you more stories and tips from experts from all over the world of automobiles. Please join us next week where we will feature our car of the week. Here's a hint, it's a real doozy. We'll have part 2 of our Inside OnStar feature. Sandra Maurer learns about brakes. Attorney Mitch Foster tells us how to talk to a police officer after being pulled over and are suspected of impaired driving in our Rules of the Road segment. We learn why Michigan roads are among the worst in the country, plus much more. We also invite you to look up our website at DetroitDrives.com for more information. Be sure to check back here next week for another edition of Detroit Drives.
Was he supposed to drive away with that thing?
I'll call the police.